There's a part of building that no one prepares you for. Not the workload, not the pressure, and honestly, it's not even the uncertainty. It's the quiet. The quiet where you're growing, improving, but no one can see it. The quiet when your ideas are still invisible. This video isn't about hustle. It's not about strategy. It's not about growth hacks. It's about what it feels like when you're building and no one's watching, and definitely no one's giving you your flowers. Obscurity is not glamorous, I wouldn't lie to you. It doesn't look like motivational reels on Instagram. It doesn't look like overnight success, and it doesn't look like celebration. It looks like working without any feedback, creating without an applause, showing up without any recognition, and believing without any evidence. It's waking up every day and choosing something that hasn't yet chosen you back. And it hurts like hell. Because we're human, we want to be seen, we want to be acknowledged, we want to be told that our efforts and our contributions actually matter. But most founders don't start with validation, they start with silence. No one claps when you first begin. No one lines up to support you. In truth, no one really understands what you're building. And I promise you, it's not because it's bad. It's just because it's early. It's too early. And listen, you're not crazy for wanting encouragement. You're not weak for hoping someone will notice. You're not wrong for wanting your work to mean something to someone else. But the truth is, at the beginning, your work will mean something or anything to only one person, and that person is you. And that is one of the hardest phases, if not the hardest phase of all. Most people would quit because they would expect immediate results, instant traction, quick proof, fast feedback. But unfortunately, building doesn't work like that. You don't get initial validation, you get eventual validation. And you see this gap between those two, that is where dreams come to die. You see, that gap is where people start asking, is this even worth it? Is this worth my time? Why am I doing this? Should I just stop? Am I a loser? Am I unserious with my life? That is the gap of questions. The gap where failure looks like the only possible reality. And I promise you, I've asked those questions more times than I can count. More so, sometimes even more recently than I would love to admit. But you come to realize that people see outcomes, they see success, they see the end. They don't see the years where you suffered, where you toiled, where you felt like a failure at every waking moment. And unfortunately, they would never see the years where you spent days and weeks hoping that you were not wrong, hoping that your delusion wasn't foolish, and hoping you weren't stupid for going the way that you decided to go. And you know why this phase is the hardest? Because you're working with two realities simultaneously. On one hand, you know and believe every single thing that you are doing. You see it, you believe it, you sleep it, you dream it, it's your every waking thought, and you can feel it within you. And in the other reality, it just doesn't exist yet. And unfortunately, people only validate what they see to exist. People don't clap for potential, they only clap for results. So you're carrying a future that no one else can see, and that in itself is heavy. And for me, that's where my faith comes in. Not in a loud way, not in some acting performative way, and not in a pretending way that believes that everything is okay, but in a way that actually sustains me. There were so many moments where I didn't have any form of a metric. There was no proof, there was no traction, there was no external validation. But I had one thing. I knew that every single idea I had was God-inspired and God-given. And I strongly believe that if He gave it to me, He is more than willing and capable to bring it to fruition. I mean, the good book does say, he who has started it in me would finish it. And I held that. That was my sleeping, waking, living thought. and guide. And he kept me sane. And that belief carried me when nothing could. I knew I wasn't building alone. Yes, I may not have seen the metrics, I may not have seen the numbers, I may not have even launched. That's a story for another day. But I knew I wasn't building alone. I knew that God was with me. I knew that Jesus was with me. And he kept me. And if I'm being honest with you, sometimes when it looked like no one cared, no one could, that was all that kept me going. Because to be honest, that was all I had. But let's be honest, metrics feel good. Views, money, followers, growth, they are tangible, they are measuring, and because of that, they are comforting. But what happens when you don't have them? When all you have to show is effort? That's where most people collapse. Not because they don't have the know-how or the possibility of success, but because they built their motivation on outcomes only. But unfortunately, outcomes, especially in this line of work, is delayed. So I had to build my motivation on something else. I built it on showing up. I built it on trusting the process. I built it on the belief that the seed mattered even when it hadn't sprouted. And some of the hardest seasons in my life was when I couldn't show I was making any progress. But I was. It was just invisible. Look, I need you to hear this. If you're building quietly, if no one's sharing yet, if no one's noticing you yet, if you're still obscure, you're not behind, you're early. Being early means being doubted, being misunderstood, being questioned, and being alone. It means that people will think you're wasting time. It means that people will think you're not serious. And that's heavy. It might feel like a curse, but it's also a blessing. Because at that point, you're not just building a project, you're building you. The version of you that your future would be thankful for. There's a verse that says, though weeping may endure for a night, joy comes in the morning. And it doesn't mean that the night is going to be short. It just means that the night itself is not permanent. And I've been there. Heck, I'm literally just coming out from there. So I have, would I say, fresh revelation on what it feels like to be there. I've seen moments where I thought this was never going to happen, this was never going to work, nobody's ever going to believe in this. Heck, how am I even going to get a team? This isn't a very serious thing, nobody understands it. And all of a sudden, it starts to work out. The weeping comes to an end and joy actually does come in the morning. People start to believe. I remember the first time someone ever believed in Val, when I shared the vision with a couple people, and I kept on getting the question, why wasn't this in the market yet? Why wasn't this in the market? I promise you, something came alive in me that day. But before Val, I had years of ideas that I would say to people, and you could see that they were just like, this one wouldn't work. But they would encourage me nonetheless, and that's where to stop. So to now go from that to having a product where it's like, why isn't this on the market? Why do you want to make it free? Why isn't this that, or why isn't it that expensive? And I'm like, you people actually think that this thing I built is that worth it? So it's like, and people are like, how can I come into your team? Where can I be of help? How do we get investors into this thing? And I'm like, are you people actually serious? That changed something in me, stirred something in me, and brought me back to life. It felt like I was on the verge of leaving, and something just pulled me back, and it was fresh, it was rejuvenating. So I know what I'm telling you. And it happened because I just didn't quit. Apostle Emmanuel always would say that eventually life gives way to people who don't quit. And that's what happened. I just didn't quit. I kept on moving, kept on pressing. And one day I had something that people wanted. I'm telling you this because I know what it feels like. I know what it feels like to build and no one cares, no one takes you seriously, there's no applause, and it's all silent. I know. But I know this, if God gave you the idea, He didn't do it accidentally, it was fully intentional, and it was given to you. So if you feel called to build, it's definitely not random. And if you're still here, you're still showing up, you're still trying, trust me, it means something. You don't need validation right now. You need endurance. You don't need applause. You need alignment. You don't need flowers today. You need strong roots. If this video felt like it was speaking to you, it's simply because you're in that season. The quiet season, the unseen season, the early season. And you're not alone in it. If you want more reflections like this, honest, real, faith aware, and founder focused. Subscribe. Not for hype, not for noise, but for depth and truth. And if you're building quietly right now, I see you. And most importantly, God sees you.